The reenactments and commentary in this program may contain frank talk of a sexual nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
A rock-throwing mystery man, tyranny by telephone, and that pesky paparazzi. It's just another dull day in court in Santa Maria, California. Hello, I'm James Curtis, and welcome to E's coverage of the Michael Jackson trial. Waving to fans and taking it all in, Michael Jackson walked into the Santa Maria courthouse ready for yet another day of intriguing testimony. Then, under questioning by Assistant District Attorney Ron Zonin, Gavin's grandmother revealed how little she knew about the King of Pop before he became a part of her life. Now, we want to remind you that the accuser's grandmother spoke in Spanish and she used a court-certified interpreter. Here's what she told the jurors, officially translated and according to the courtroom transcripts.
Were you aware as to where your daughter and her 3 children were visiting during that period of time?
Yes.
And where was that?
Neverland. I can't say it very well, but they're Neverland.
Is Neverland a place where you had once visited?
Never.
Did you know what Neverland was prior to that time of January and February and March of 2003?
No.
Did you know who Michael Jackson was prior to February of 2003?
No.
Do you know who Michael Jackson is today?
We all know because you see it on TV.
All right. Now, did you ever see a documentary on television that was titled Living with Michael Jackson?
No.
Did you ever see anything on TV that featured your grandchildren, where your grandchildren were shown on television?
No. I only see part of it in the Mexican channel because those are the channels I watch.
Did you ever see any shots at all of your grandchildren on television?
Lately, just a little clip, short little clip on 52 and 34.
Did you become aware of the fact that your grandchildren had been featured on television in a documentary?
No.
At some point in time, did you have a number of reporters or press who came to your home?
Oh, yes. My door, my mailbox. They opened my mailbox. They even opened my mailbox. They yelled at me. I even had to call the police several times. They parked everywhere. The worst one was the 52, channel 52. The light was so bright, they seemed like a soccer field. The police came and told them to take away that. And the reporter, she said no, because she had to do a report. Another police officer came, and he did make them turn it off. And then, 6 o'clock p.m., they turned it on again.
Oh, I love this actress. Next, was it one big happy family reunion at Grandma's house?
Do you know who the person was who delivered the children to the house?
Miguel's people.
Is Miguel Michael Jackson?
Yes, it's Miguel in Spanish.
Thank you. Miss, when your children came into the house, was your daughter Janet and her then boyfriend Jay at your home at the time that the 3 grandchildren arrived?
No, I received them by myself.
At some time later, that day or at another day, did Janet and Jay arrive at your home?
Objection leading. Overruled. You may answer.
Yes, they came later.
Was it the same day or a different day?
Yes, the same day.
The same day. All right. Would you describe for us how the children were behaving at the time that they arrived from Neverland?
Those children that came were not my grandkids.
Explain that to us, please.
Their entire life, my grandkids and I were very close. Their happiness, their sadness, their games, all of that. I was always very important for all 3 of them. When they came back, they didn't talk to me the same way. They were different kids. And even up till now, Gavin is not the same child.
Objection, non-responsive, move to strike. Overruled.
All right, Ricky, Sean, the idea that this witness, one, testifies about this paparazzi issue is something, it seems a little of an aside in this trial. But when the main points, playing back into the expert psychologist witness theme that the prosecution called a changed kid. Indeed, all of them being
exactly.
changed.
That's what's important. Not just one kid. I think it would be more important if only Gavin had changed. But the fact that all 3 of the kids change, I don't think the prosecution's alleging that Michael Jackson molested all of them. So I think it flies in the face of the expert.
Now, that's a really interesting observation. I hadn't really thought about it that
well,
way.
and I think it's a very good argument. But let me give you a good argument for the prosecution about why they called this witness and what may happen as a result of her. We've had days on end of a mother who is Looney Tunes. Now we have a grandmother who's so likable. I mean, everybody likes this woman. So perhaps her image can spill over on not only to the mother's testimony, but to the whole family, and the jury might view them differently yet again.
I am surrounded by brilliant attorneys. Both of those are outstanding observations. No, I think you're absolutely right, Sean, on the defense, because it would be very significant, I think, if it was just a change in Gavin, a part above and beyond the other two kids. But certainly, as you observed yesterday, Ricky, the idea of trying to shore up this mother who was rough. She was problems for the defense as well as the prosecution in a lot of different ways. Is it going to work?
Well, I think that in many ways it will work, and we can talk more about the fact that we have to remember you have to view the trial as a whole. Yeah. It's not just one witness, it's not just one day, it's not just 1 week.
Well, I guess we can wait till the next.
Well, let's just wait till the next time as the accuser's grandmother continues. She's so accommodating. She helps me every time she can. This accuser's grandmother testifies about spending sleepless nights in El Monte reading her caller ID display on her telephone.
After the 3 children returned from Neverland to your home, did you receive any phone calls at your home?
Many, many, many. Day and night. I had the red phone, and it had a little square like that. And in that little square, sometimes it said Neverland, and some other time Frank, or I don't know. And the voice would say, Gavin, Star, Dublin. Somebody answer.
Objection, non-responsive.
Excuse me. Sustained.
Could you actually hear messages being left on your phone?
Oh, yes.
Could you tell if it was one voice or more than one voice leaving messages on the phone?
Sometimes it said on there, Neverland.
Okay.
And some other times it was that Frank. What really hurts me is that my granddaughter erased it. Otherwise, she always liked to, one of the phones broke down, and she tried to make it out of 2 phones, make 1.
Objection, non-responsive.
Sustained.
All right. The latter part of the answer, Your Honor, you're referring to?
We'll leave the first 2 sentences in.
You told us what you were able to see on the screen on the phone, and you told us you were also able to hear a voice.
Yes.
Is that your...
Yes. The phone had a little square. And then you could hear the person talk.
All right.
And I never allowed the kids to pick up the phone because I was always watching out for that. You know, I would also get calls very late at night, maybe thinking that I was asleep. But ever since that time when they came, when they were no longer the same kids, I couldn't sleep anymore because I was always watching out for that phone.
Sean Chapman Holly, one of the things that impresses me about where we are in general in the prosecution's case, we've all seen lots of cases. Typically, at this stage in the prosecution's case, they announce that they're going to wrap up by the end of next week. No matter what the defense is or who the defendant is, you're thinking, they probably did it. We're not here.
Exactly.
And we're not at that place.
That is exactly right. That's what I have been saying to everyone who will listen. Normally, as you said, at this point in any prosecution case, you're thinking, guilty, put him away. And it's not till you get to the defense case that you start going, maybe not. But we've gone, maybe not, I think many times throughout the prosecution case.
We may do that from time to time, but the reality is this. If you look at it from a balanced point of view, Sean can say, well, there is reasonable doubt, so by reasonable doubt we can vote not guilty. I can say, hey, wait a minute. Let's look at this whole thing, not a day, a week, but the whole case. It's Gavin supported by his siblings, even supported by his wacky mother, who is supported by physical evidence, including surveillance, including phone calls, including the passports, and it's those prior acts of uncharged misconduct. A jury can convict on that evidence.
But the problem, Ricky, let me just challenge you just a moment. Each and every point that's good for the prosecution, as we observed some weeks ago, it's 1 step forward, 2 steps back with respect to, as it seems, each good point that they put up on the board.
Doesn't matter if it's a step forward and a step back. Ultimately, what matters is what the jury considers as a whole. If they want to choose to believe Gavin, that's the end of this case.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But will they choose so? Sean Chapman Holly reserving that energetic response till we return. And when we return, who would attack the home of a little old lady. Stay with us.
The reenactments and commentary in this program may contain frank talk of a sexual nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome back. We pick back up with the direct examination of Gavin's grandmother. She recalls being tormented by prying eyes and ringing telephones. Here's how she responded to questions from Assistant District Attorney Ron Zonin, again, officially translated and according to the courtroom transcripts.
Over what period of time did the calls continue? In other words, was it over days, over weeks, or months? How would describe the length of time that the calls continued?
A long time. I couldn't tell you days or whatever because I didn't keep track of days, hours. And I watched my grandkids until my daughter took them, took the boys, and Davey stayed with me.
Did you ever become aware of the fact that there were people watching you?
Objection. Leading.
Overruled.
All around my house, there was a lot of cars. There was a lot of people.
Did anybody ever come to the door and attempt to contact you or the children?
Many people came to the door of my house. Cameras. I was hiding. I was almost like a prisoner. I had to hide. I couldn't even stick my face out like that because everybody would just come on over.
That couldn't have been pleasant. Next, the harassment escalates with a new weapon of choice.
Within a week or two after your grandchildren returned to your home, did anybody come to the door, knock on the door, and inquire about the children?
Yes, all the time. All the time.
Anybody throw stones at your house?
Yes. Once I'm speaking slow so that you can be talking. I was sitting down watching the soap operas because I'm always watching my soap operas. That TV I have in the dining room, Davey sleeps or used to sleep in the bedroom that goes out. That's out to the street. But sitting like this, here's the dining room, and there was the bedroom. But I was sitting down when I heard a brrr or something like that. But I thought myself, well, it must be the kids just out in the street. But no. Then again and again. And then by the third time is when I stood up.
Objection. Non-responsive and narrative.
Narrative. Sustained.
What did you do then?
I stood up. I walked around and Davey just rushed out the bedroom. And she asked me, Mama, Mom, did you hear that? So I told her, yes, somebody's throwing rocks at the house. We both went up to the door. And when we went out like that, we saw a man standing next to the car. It was a small car. I don't know if it's black or blue because it was getting late.
Objection. Narrative. Non-responsive.
Sustained.
After you saw the vehicle, did you see the person near the vehicle?
Yes.
Could you...
Right at the time that my granddaughter and I went out, we turned like that because right at the time a rock was coming on its way and it hit right on the window of Davey's bedroom.
While you were standing watching?
Yes, right at the time that we went out like that.
Objection. Narrative. Non-responsive.
Sustained.
Sean Chapman Holly, displayer of great restraint, and I appreciate it. This testimony still, would you argue, doesn't quite get there. You've got rock throwers potentially, you've got paparazzi potentially, but the connection between whatever's going on at this woman's house and Michael Jackson, the ends aren't meeting, are they?
Actually, you know what this said to me? Is this provides, I think, a reason why Michael Jackson could have been concerned about a need for protection.
Explain.
Well,
You took my note.
Oh, no.
Stop looking at Ricky's notes.
No.
I agree with you completely.
Yes. I mean, he has, by virtue of this documentary, brought this horrible assault upon this family.
Yeah.
And he feels bad about it. There's the media, they're throwing rocks, they're knocking on the door, and so he's concerned about this and offering protection, perhaps, from this very conduct that he really brought upon himself by virtue of this
Or at least brought
documentary.
upon them, right?
Yes, by them.
There is no debate. I cannot take another side to this at all from what Sean just said. I do not know why the prosecution put this in evidence, because it does show that there was danger, which is precisely the defense theory.
But we will see as this testimony continues, an attempt at least, and you be the judge about how successful it is to connect that danger again to this defendant. Now, the question becomes, was this rock thrower a teenage Romeo, an irate neighbor, or some heavy hired by the king of pop? Or none of the above is always a choice, folks. The accuser's grandmother tries to identify the culprit.
You actually saw somebody throw a stone?
Yes.
Was it the person standing next to the car?
Yes.
Can you describe that person for us as best you can?
I know that it was a man that was standing there, and he had a cap right at the time that we saw the man. Davlin and I told Davlin, call the police.
Objection, Your Honor. Narrative.
Sustained as to the last sentence.
Were you standing with Davlin at the time you saw the stone being thrown?
When he threw the last rock that I saw that hit Davlin's bedroom window, we were both standing there.
Did you then contact law enforcement?
That's when I told Davlin to run and call the police.
Did you?
And so that man very quickly got in the car and took off.
And did you, in fact, call the police?
No.
May I have just one moment, please, Your Honor?
I don't really remember, but yes.
Thank you. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
No questions, Your Honor.
But the other day...
Thank you. There are no further questions. You may step down.
Next, it's back to school with Michael Davey. He's Gavin's former counselor. On direct examination, attorney Tom Snedden questions the witness about how he and Gavin's mother dealt with the accuser's unexplained absence from school.
And as a result of that, did you give her further direction as to what procedurally would have to be followed to get those children out of school?
Right.
Tell us what you told her.
I indicated that if she was unable to come, that we needed someone with a note from her and her driver's license. And that person needed to be able to have an ID also. And that we needed the textbooks returned, and to do it quickly, to do it soon.
All right. At that point in time, did you become aware of the fact that somebody came to check the children out of school?
Yes. She said that somebody would come in a day or two.
And did you write a note to somebody to expect this to happen?
I wrote a note to my secretary that a person would be coming with her ID and his ID and pay for the books, and to direct that person to the book room to pay for any textbooks that weren't there.
All right, I want to deal with this witness in just a moment, Ricky, but we must go back. We must go back to the outstanding choice of cross-examination, or lack thereof, by Tom Mesereau of the grandmother.
Perfect. No questions, Your Honor.
Yeah.
It says worlds. It says, number one, I don't want to hurt this lovely woman. I'm not going to beat up on her.
Yes.
I'm really a good guy. Number two is, it says she didn't say one thing that hurt him. And if the idea was to say that it was one of Michael Jackson's people throwing a rock through that window, that really is ridiculous.
I mean, that couldn't possibly be
No,
the
it
implication of the prosecution.
Of course it is. Come on, how can it not
Michael
be?
Jackson's
Ridiculous.
people throwing
Well, I mean-
rocks outside this woman's house in El Monte?
Again,
Come
let me
on.
play Ricky for just a moment. Let's look at the big
I like that
picture,
idea.
if
He
you
is
will.
much, much lovelier than
She
you.
is much
Go ahead.
lovelier. She's much smarter, but I'm going to give it my best shot. Looking at the big picture, we have, again, repeated calls to the grandmother's house. The implication in testimony is that they are from Michael Jackson's people. She says
I can buy that.
Neverland
Yeah.
shows
That I
up.
buy.
Yes.
We have previous testimony that says that the kids were being followed, videotaped
Yes.
by Michael Jackson's
and we know that is
people.
true because
Yes.
the videotapes
Yes, we've seen the
exist.
videos. Yeah.
Exactly. Therefore, it's not a real big stretch, although it might be a stretch, not a real big stretch to say that they are trying so desperately to get in contact with his family, they are trying to access them at the grandmother's house, throwing that little pebble, trying to get their attention. Come on.
You mean
I
like
can't
the
even
lover going
respond.
up and, you know,
I
let's
was
go
with
down
Okay,
to
I did the best I could. I
You
got
don't even
shot
believe it.
down. Down in flames once again goes the host. When we return, I'll wash myself off, douse those flames. Was the mystery man that checked Gavin out of school somebody who was connected with the Jackson team? Stay with us.
The reenactments and commentary in this program may contain frank talk of a sexual nature. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome back. So, after Gavin and his brother had been out of school for a while, who showed up to officially check them out of school? Well, here's a hint. We've heard the name before. Unindicted co-conspirator, Jackson associate. I'll stop there. Here's what the young accuser's former counselor told the jury according to the courtroom transcripts.
Now, did you at some point actually meet somebody who came to check the boys out of school?
I did.
And do you remember the name of that person?
Yes, it was Mr. Amon, Vincent Amon.
All right. And did you personally deal with him on the checkout procedure?
The secretary gave him the paperwork and made copies of his ID and Ms. driver's license. And she kept the note that was sent along with him. And, you know, I spoke to him briefly, but I didn't handle the nuts and bolts of it. The secretary did.
And were some books paid for on that particular occasion?
Books were paid for, yes.
By whom?
By Vincent Amon.
Ricky Kleeman, I need you now, or should I say the prosecution needs you now. Make this witness work for the prosecution.
Easy. It's totally easy. What happens is, according to the prosecution, this family is being falsely imprisoned at Neverland. So what do? They say to the mother, you better make this call. You better get these IDs ready. Vincent Amon takes the paperwork, goes down there, picks up the book, checks them out of school so they can spirit them off right to Brazil.
What?
No. Look.
No.
Exactly. This mother has to facilitate this official checkout of the school.
Sure.
She's got to do affirmative acts to make this happen. This is a woman we've heard. She's speaking in code. She's doing all of these things. Why would she affirmatively do stuff to get her kids officially checked out of school?
Because she affirmatively does everything that she is told to do because she says she's living in fear.
But she has to supply the ID,
Exactly.
and I don't recall any
She had to
testimony.
sign the passport application.
I read her entire testimony, as did you, I know, because it was so intriguing. I don't remember anything about having her kids checked out of school and cooperating anyway. Be sure to watch our exclusive coverage of the Michael Jackson trial every weeknight, 7:30 p.m. Tomorrow, was Neverland a prison? We're going to hear, folks, get this, a police officer who was actually employed by Michael Jackson at Neverland.